a media briefing this week in Abuja. The AGF, the Attorney General of the Federation, so the Federal Ministry of Justice and the Nigeria Bar Association, we are putting together a new national summit on the justice sector where all factors hindering the effectiveness of Nigerian laws would be tackled. He stated that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu would, on April 24, 2024, declare the National Summit open to address critical challenges in the national justice sector in Abuja. Of course, the AGF have stated that some of our laws are archaic and there's need for reform. He made specific mention to the Electoral Act. He stated that this archaic and, of course, our criminal justice system is also prison reform and so on and so forth. Of course, the Electoral Act was recently amended, I think 2022. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, 2022 was recently amended. You know, it's surprising that the AGF has said that this is archaic. What did we do in 2022 then? If a law that was recently amended in 2022 is archaic, it begs the question, what was done on that law?
Well, as you see, you look at it in terms of, etymological connotation. If, you look at it, the AGF said, that's Latif Fagbemi, the age of the Federation, has said that our laws are archaic, and he mentioned the Electoral Act. I do not agree entirely that the Electoral Act of 2022 is archaic. However, you see, what is archaic could be relative, as relativity of concepts. He may have in mind the need to amend some provisions of the Electoral Act. And to that extent, I agree entirely with him. There are some provisions of the Electoral Act that need to be amended. For example, Section 60, subsection 5 of the Act needs to be amended. That is the provision of the Electoral Act 2022 that gives discretion to INEC in terms of transmission of electoral result. What Nigerians expected is that there should be electronic transmission of election results, and that should be made mandatory. Of course, recently, the House of Representatives, some lawmakers have come up with the need to amend some provisions of the Electoral Act. And that Section 65 is one of the sections that is in the front burner for amendment. And what is the essence of that amendment? That you remove the issue of discretion from INEC or anybody responsible for the conduct of elections and make it mandatory that election results be transmitted electronically through IREF portal, so that at the end of the day, whatever is done will be very transparent. It's not for anybody to claim that, yes, we can do it even though we didn't do it electronically. And so, because we saw what happened at the last election. And of course, the Supreme Court said in respect of the presidential election result that though they were not transmitted electronically, but there was still substantial compliance, which has been the balance. That there could be regularities here and there, but so long as there's substantial compliance, is given a pass mark. There needs to amend that provision to ensure that results are transmitted electronically. And again, there is also need to amend Section 28 of the Electoral Act, which staggered dates of elections. Before now, elections were being held in one day. Presidential, House of Representatives, the Senate, governors, every election usually held in one day. Winners are declared, losers are also they go home. It is good that under the current Electoral Act, the 2022 Act, elections are staggered. It is not good for us, for one. It is not cost effective. When you conduct all the election in one day, it will save costs. Again, it will also make possible manipulations difficult for those. And maybe a particular party may have lost at one stage of elections, then the other party may now try to manipulate things to ensure that they don't lose anymore. Such things are not good for us. Just need to go back to what we used to know in those days, and which is that all elections are conducted one day. The body conducting election, like the INEC, will print the papers, do all the logistics, move the materials at once, and so on. It will reduce the monumental amount, the humongous amount of money being spent in election in Nigeria. And also, the issue of Section 47 of the Electoral Act that has to do with the issue of accreditation. There is need to make it mandatory that once a person is not accredited, the person cannot vote. And it's also good to make accreditation to be electronically done, no more room for manual accreditation. You look at the register, yes, there's a name there, that is your name. No.
Yeah, and that has already been done. Electronic accreditation.
Yeah, but it is good that in some places they said that that it did not work, no battery, no generator, nothing to power it, and then they now resort to manual accreditation. Right. So that should be made mandatory. And then
we are almost out of time.
Okay. Some of the other things is
to also contribute.
Well, what I want to say is even a little bit different from the issue of the provisions of the law. It's a good thing that this this particular summit for reform of the constitution of the laws, the various laws, the justice sector reform. We had always had this law reform commission before now. I wonder what happened to it. Some of these laws ought to have been reviewed or revisioned by the law reform commission. We thank God this issue is coming up again. It's as if that institution had been left moribund. There are a lot of our laws that are actually archaic and outdated, like he said, which ought to have been sent to the law reform commission for amendments or complete overhaul. Yes, all our penal laws, they are all outdated.
The Supreme Court is also congested.
Yes, even our institutional laws. Even our institutional laws, there are institutions that are still existing. There are institutions that are existing that ought to exist, that ought not to exist, like the NJC. I don't know, NJC was established by Abacha's government for some interest purpose. We had the state, all the state have the Judicial Service Commission that was doing the function of NJC before Abacha set up NJC, and we included it in a democratic dispensation, which today exemplify a unitary structure of our judicial administration system, which ought not to be in a federal state. That should be revisited. Now you also have a lot of other areas, but let me talk about this other laws. Let me talk about this Electoral Act.
You just have 3 minutes.
Yes, the Nigerian Electoral Act is structured for imperfection deliberately. The time element that is put on it, almost everything has timeline to comply. The situation when you file any petition against an election result, the candidate you are contesting against is sworn in, and because of delay, the man is there for almost 3-4 years before the case is heard or completed.
I think that has been done away. There is 180 days now.
The 180 days, is it working? Is it working? You also have that this problem of allowing INEC to be the one to register political parties and to conduct election. I think there's a need for separation of that. There should be a body dealing with registration so that INEC can face the issue of election conduct, the conduct of the election proper. And of course, you have also the mechanistic justice that is structured into the procedural system of the election petition cases, where you have.
All right, we are almost out of
yes.
time.
So these are some of the areas.
Get your last word, few seconds, 30 seconds.
In terms of impeachment, our law need to be clear as to what constitutes gross misconduct. In the area of electoral act, there are also needs to amend some provisions of the electoral act to ensure that our elections are credible worldwide.
All right, thank you very much. President, just a few seconds.
Yes, I'm looking at an electronically conducted election in this country that will remove the human factor, the X factor that we have always have in our elections.
All right, thank you very much, viewers at home, for staying through till this time.